Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Wizardry workshop. I'm sure you've noticed at most wizard houses, they have a bucket or pail of a sandy substance near their fireplaces. That's where they keep their Floo powder. Today we'll be making our own version of Floo powder with some Kinetic sand. We're going to need a 1/2 cup measuring cup, teaspoons, a 1/4 teaspoon, a bowl, something to stir with, water, dish soap, craft sand, cornstarch, white glue, and liquid starch. We'll start by adding a teaspoon of water to our bowl. Next, we're adding dish soap. I intended to only add 5 drops, but it ended up being about a teaspoon. Okay, we'll add a teaspoon of cornstarch and a teaspoon of glue, Now we'll stir that up until everything is combined. Now we can add a 1/4 teaspoon of liquid starch and stir again. You'll notice it's becoming the consistency of slime. You should go ahead and add another 1/4 teaspoon of liquid starch here if yours looks really loose like mine. Next, we can start adding in our sand. I'm going to start by adding about 1/2 of what's in the measuring cup and stir that in. At this stage it's still really wet, so we'll add in more of our sand and keep stirring, or you can go ahead and mix with your hands. Now we'll add the last of that 1/2 cup of sand and keep mixing. It's still too wet and needs more sand, so I'm going to pour some in and keep mixing. Now I think it's at the point where it's ready for more liquid starch because it's got a nice sandy consistency but is still too sticky. So we'll add another 1/4 teaspoon and mix. It's almost perfect, but still on the sticky side, so I'm going to go ahead and add one more 1/4 teaspoon of liquid starch. Now it's got that nice kinetic sand thing happening where you can see some strands pulling away as it falls. But now it's a little too wet again, so we'll pour in a small amount of sand and give that a good mix. And now it's perfect. So all in all, we used about a 3/4 cup of sand. Now we can play with our creation. It will mold into shapes, and hold when cut in half. But then will fall away like store-bought Kinetic sand. The only downside is it's not going to last as long as the real Kinetic sand, but it's still fun to play with. It will eventually harden up some and turn into a sandy dough. I hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll attach a rough recipe in the video description if you want to try this one at home. See you next week!